continental drift theory says that a same-size Earth a billion or so years ago had all of the land masses collected on one side of the planet in a giant island that they refer to as Pangaea. The rest of the planet was covered with water. The theory we explore says that this model is preposterous. Rather, we say that the Earth grew and the land masses were indeed a giant island, but that island covered the Earth. Here is an example of how the Pangaea theorists see the Earth going backward in time. Of course, there are many models of Pangaea, as many as there are theorists. There can be only one model, the true model. We reject this Pangaea model as being, well, silly. We will show you our model later on in this tape. But for our model to be true, for any model to be true, that is, if the Earth grew, that would mean that all planetary bodies grew. All planets, all moons, all suns grew. This would also mean that the universe grows and grew, and that the Big Bang Theory is false. So let's begin our examples with a more humble planetoid than the Earth. This is the Earth's moon, familiar, yet very mysterious. Down here we find what is clearly an impact crater, and probably an historically recent one. Look at this crater's splash trails. This photo shows the splash trails from that same impact crater. One splash trail going up at 1 o'clock travels across the entire face of the moon. Here again, another photo that shows the star-like spread from the impact of that meteorite at that impact crater. Here are other clear impact craters, or so we believe. But what is this gigantic spread? We call it Mare Serenitatis. Exactly what is this spread? And this, that we call Mare Imbrium. And what about this area? That's about the size of Europe. We call it Oceanus Procellarum, the ocean of storms. Fully 1/3 of the moon's surface consists of these gigantic spread areas. Let's examine them. We're often told that these are impact craters. Of course, they couldn't be. An impact crater of this size would blast the moon apart, or at minimum, gouge gigantic chunks out of the moon. More, look at their size. Look at the lack of splash. Also notice that within these areas there is a significant lack of craterization. These areas are newer, fresher areas. It's as if these areas spread slowly outward and pushed the upper tectonic surface aside and bunched up these surfaces along the areas of the spread's rims. Look at the bunching up of the older, higher plate areas. Yes, these mares are spreads from a growing planetoid, and they are consistently lower tectonically. Each spread pushes material away from the center of the eruptive spread. In the very same way, the surface of a crystal geode grows. Here, aided by perspective, you can easily see how much lower these areas truly are than the standard cratered surface. According to our theory, this is the moon 400 million years ago. The mares exist only in their early primitive stage. They will grow and expand, and the moon will grow through time. The spreads grow, and the moon grows. This is our present moon. For careful examination and scrutiny, we will go backward in time. Importantly, 50% of the volume of the moon is now gone. 50%. Half. We'll go forward and backward one more time. While we do, Remember, we are reducing and enlarging only those gigantic spreads or mares. This has led us to a significant and interesting problem. If we say those spreads are eruptive growth from the inside of the moon, wouldn't the gravitational pull of the Earth, exerted on the Earth's side of the moon, cause most, if not all, of the growth to erupt toward the Earth? In fact, wouldn't that imply that these eruptive mares should not exist on the side of the moon which faces away from the Earth? That's what the logic says, but let's see what reality says. In fact, as you can see, the far side of the moon has virtually no gigantic mares or spreads. Well, there's one, but smallish by comparison to the gigantic spreads of the Earth's side moon. In fact, that eruption on the lower right is on the border between both sides. If the mares spread, as we say, that spread was once on the Earth's side of the moon. This is Ganymede, a moon of Jupiter. We say the dark areas are the upper tectonic and older plates. The light areas are the growth areas. The lighter, the younger, the older, the thicker, the higher, and, of course, the more impact craters. Now we will go backward in time to see if these dark areas could fit together. As you look at it now, after the movement is complete, do you see how if we continue this movement, more and more dark areas would fit together until the darks would cover the planetoid? Now we'll go forward in time to the present day. Hard to believe that's a coincidence, isn't it? Next, we whisk off to another moon of Jupiter. This is Io. I cannot vouch for the colors, but the darks and lights tell a significant story. Please examine this moon very carefully as we take it back in time. Let me assure you, we did nothing except track the upper tectonic plates back along their natural paths. We set rules and followed them. We didn't play with the images. We simply brought the plates together. Even knowing what we know, we were stunned by the final image. Now we'll take a deep breath and step up to Mars. Beautiful, isn't it? It's in the news a lot these days and quite misunderstood. We're pulling into a rift canyon which the astronomers call the Valles Marineris. You could drop the state of New York into it. That's how big it is. Earth scientists are trying to prove that this rift was worn away by water. Rather than ridicule this preposterous opinion, which I guess I've just done, let's say first, it was not worn away by water. It's simply a stretch mark, a stretch apart in the upper tectonic plate. To clarify this to you, we will close the stretch mark. Notice, we do not change or modify the individual pieces. We simply put them back together like a puzzle. If the pieces were worn away by water, they would not go back together. It would be impossible. We are now 200 million years ago, and we'll now reverse time and pull out to show you just how this rift was created. Please watch carefully. Of course, it wasn't simply this rift that grew, but the whole planet. Before we show you Mars' growth, let's look at a short review of the spreading of the Veils marinars. Examine it closely. Now for Mars. This Mars project is only half complete, but you can see the dark upper tectonic plates draw together. How do we know the dark plates are the upper tectonic plates? The upper, thicker plates? Scientists on the Mars project tell us so. They say the darker plates are high elevated areas. The darker, highly elevated areas are also richer in their abundance of impact craters, making them clearly older. Yes, Mars scientists currently say these things now. They don't know why. This is why. Mars grew, and the light areas are the eruptive stretch areas. In this example, we have removed fully 50% of the volume of Mars. Now we'll bring it back by going forward in time. And so finally we come to Earth. We will send the Earth back in time 1 billion years. What won't we do? We won't spin land masses or drive them underwater or raise them out of the water. For scientists among you, we won't subduct land masses. We won't drive one landmass under another landmass, based on the theory that they call subduction, which we believe is simply not true. Land masses are 4 miles thick. They are not razor blades that slide under other razor blades. We will simply move the upper tectonic plates back together the way they were 1 billion years ago. Of course, at that time, it was all underwater, which we aren't showing. I'm not going into the detail that I will in the final tape. Please simply examine our work and see how scientifically scrupulous we were in our work. Please examine it carefully as you can. Thank you.